So I would say maybe self love starts with self knowledge, like
Mhm.
who am I? And it seems kind of obvious, but I don't think most of us know ourselves that much, that deep, do
Mhm.
that work of actually knowing our desires, our needs, understanding why we behave in certain ways, why we decide what we decide. So it starts with knowing ourselves, I believe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Heal and Manifest podcast. I am Cynthia Flores, your host. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a coach. I'm a speaker. And today I have a very special guest. And today we're going to be talking about self love. We're going to be covering, just talking about self love. What does it mean? We all have a very unique experience and relationship to ourselves. So, self love is a topic, understanding that is not about the destination, it's about the journey. I want to introduce my special guest. Luciana Couto. She is a Brazilian health and wellness coach, and she is based in Canada. She is empowering women worldwide to reach their fitness goals without restrictive diets or quick fixes. Her holistic approach really helps women embrace balance and build lasting, healthy habits one step at a time. Thank you, Luciana, for accompanying me and having this conversation. But before that, okay, so I'll let you speak.
I just wanna say thank you so much for having me here.
Of course, of course. You know, this topic around self love, we hear it a lot on social media, we hear it a
Hmm.
lot online. And I think it's amazing and beautiful that we are empowering people to embark in their healing journey, to embrace the self love journey, right? But we do know that it is not like a linear thing, right? It is self love
Exactly.
is not about an outcome or getting into a specific destination. It's about being in the present moment, understanding what is your current life situation, circumstances. How do we allow ourselves to give ourselves grace, give ourselves permission to be messy human beings, right? Because life is not
Yes.
perfect. We are not perfect, right? So I think when it comes to self love or this concept around self love, it's going back, it's important to understand that it's not a destination that we have to reach or a level that we have to reach,
Hmm.
but it is rather a continuous journey of growth, of self discovery. And of course, in this episode, we're going to talk about these different multifaceted layers about self love, how to maybe shift or reframe the way that we think about love, self love, and just like unpacking all of these. And what it mean, how to help all of our listeners to maybe start thinking or self reflecting on your journey and your experiences so you can apply this into your life and live more in the present moment, and embracing your journey. Right.
Hmm.
So, Luciana, I guess, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, right, to
Sure.
delve deep into this topic. For you, in your personal experience and the reason why you're doing this work, I'm sure it brought you to what you're doing this work, right? But I'm curious for you, what does self-love means?
Wow, I think you said well when you said that it's not a destination, it's a journey, because it's definitely not a goal, like I have to reach self love, or something that people usually think is I need this condition, like when I am in a certain way, I'm gonna love myself.
Mm.
And it's not like that. It's the opposite. Before I love myself, and then I can reach what I can be, that person that I want to be. And I could use a lot of beautiful words to describe self-love. We talk a lot about it, but I like to put it simple. For me, it's as simple as having a relationship with yourself. And if you think about it, if you start to think about, if you start to see yourself as your best friend, I think all the other questions about self love that you may have are already answered. It's just about being friend with yourself and treat yourself as a friend. So anytime you think, what should I do? What I would say to my friend, what I would advise to a friend in a situation like that. It's as simple as
Mm.
that.
I love that. I love that. And that resonates with me a lot because when I think about my journey, my self-love journey, I mean, I can think certain time in the timeline of my life, maybe when I was, I don't know, in my teenage years, right? These are things that oftentimes we don't learn from our parents. Right, because
Unfortunately.
unfortunately we probably see our parents that may look happy or fulfilled, right? There's a lot of grief, maybe there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
resentment, maybe there's a lot of unmet needs, desires, goals, dreams. And for me, it was just paying attention to those things because we do internalize a lot of our parents' experiences or belief systems
Mm-hmm.
that are oftentimes coming from scarcity, from pain, from trauma. And for me, I realized that, of course, as a teenager, as a child, I didn't know all of these things. I didn't have activities or things that perhaps my parents would do, like, oh, look at yourself in the mirror. Like, tell
Mm-hmm.
yourself, how beautiful, how amazing, how smart, how intelligent you are. So, a lot of these things for me, I had to kind of look outwardly in school in the education system, and I realized I'm fucked because not even there I got that reassurance. It almost like reinforced all of these negative beliefs. It like made them bigger and bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I was listening to a video online, I think on TikTok, around school and how a lot of children internalize a lot of these beliefs, right? Limiting beliefs, like they're not
Mm-hmm.
smart enough, they're not valuable enough, they're not worthy enough, right? They don't belong, right? All of these very core beliefs. I do recall one situation that I think there was I had a calendar, a cat calendar, that my mom gave me, and we're doing a gift exchange, and that was for me. I brought an extra gift for somebody else, and I gave the gift for somebody else, and then I stayed with my gift, and I was so happy. I was like, "Yay! My mom bought me this cute little calendar." And then I realized that my teacher, I think I was in third grade or something, and highly traumatized me because of that. My teacher, at some point, I was sitting down at my desk, and she took my cat calendar and she gave it to another kid, and I was like, what
Wow.
well, I was like, why? I was feeling very sad. I wasn't as vocal. I was very timid and shy, but I was like, what's happened? Why did you do that? And she's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, you can give this to another student. And I just remember coming home feeling very sad, crying to my mom, like, Mom, this is what happened. Like, I don't know. And she's like, oh, it's okay. And why am I telling this story? Because I think that traumatic memory, even though it may seem very normal, and
Mm-hmm.
for me it literally made me believe like my voice, I was not maybe worthy enough, lovable enough, or
I
deserving of
I
all of these
get
things.
you.
So we understand that these little instances, that things that do happen in our lives, they
Mm-hmm.
pile up, right?
Exactly.
So how does that affect our self-love or our relationship to ourselves? Well, we carry all of this weight, we carry all of these, we internalize, because we're very sensitive human beings and children. We internalize these things as factual, as true, as a reality, and we
Mm-hmm.
go into our lives thinking, well, you know my truth doesn't matter, my voice doesn't matter, I'm not going to speak up because it I don't have value, right? All of these things. So for me, it
Mm-hmm.
has taken that part plus other things, right, along the way, navigating you know relationships, friendships, all of these things throughout my adulthood. I think for me, self love has taken different forms,
Mm-hmm.
different definitions throughout my life. And I can say that for now, so what self love means for me is really being loyal and faithful to me. Is
Ah, good question.
it's like, how can I be loyal? How can I remain loyal and faithful to myself?
Exactly.
And that is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I talk to my clients about, because I realize there's a lot of things and people, societal expectations, family expectations, our partners expectations, our children's expectations of what they want, what they require from us,
Mm-hmm.
or what they expect us or want us to be. But is that who we really are?
Yeah. I think, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I think the first it's a topic that it's kind of hot right now, but it
Mhm.
was not always that way. Self-love was not, nobody taught me self-love. No, it was not even a thing when I grew up. And I think my mother was never taught about it as well. So
Mhm.
you learn, I learned a lot from her behavior,
Mhm.
from her, how can I say, her acts of love towards herself, or the
Mhm.
lack of, I don't know. But anyways, I think it's a topic that it's new, so
Mhm.
maybe the next generations are going to have a better relationship with themselves. But it's definitely something that we are still learning. And I don't know about you, but my experience was a suppressing one. Like,
Mhm.
was growing up, I was taught that, oh, you should be quiet, you shouldn't ever show off pride, because that is tacky, or something like
Mhm.
that, especially being a girl.
Oh
There
yeah.
are certain types of behavior that people expect from a girl that
Mhm.
they don't expect from boys. Like,
Mhm.
boys are brave,
Mhm.
girls, they are untamed, or men are confident, women are egocentric.
Mhm.
Those type of, nowadays we are talking about women being confident, women should be confident, we are always saying that we should support women being confident, but are we,
Mhm.
when we perceive a women as confident, don't we judge a little bit? Because,
Mhm.
not because we are bad people, but because we were taught to think, to judge like that, like, oh, she's showing off, she's egocentric.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And you know what? We do live in a patriarchal society, right? In a misogynistic society. And what is misogyny? Misogyny is literally the unconscious or unconscious or subconscious hatred of women.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. We understand that historically women were placed women were property. Women and children
Exactly.
were property. So, I mean, I'm not saying, this is literally through history. We understand that that's the impact. And these patriarchal system does, especially young girls and women, make them, silence themselves, right? Like the how silence impacts us
Mm-hmm.
intergenerationally. We know that we had to be calladitas, we had to be quiet, we had to make ourselves small, you know
Exactly.
for what, for whom? Like, that's the question. Like, of course, like, I mean, if we think about it, like, that's literally how this society is built.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate. This is not a critique on men or, family system. This is a critique on the systems as a whole, right? The
Yeah,
patriarchal systems, the all of these different systems that and multi-layered systems that affect us on the day-to-day, conscious or
exactly.
unconscious. So we're all part of it.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
sorry.
No, and men have also been conditioned. We've been conditioned. So what happens is men have been conditioned to repress their emotions, to be disconnected from their emotions, and women have been conditioned to be disconnected from our voice, from our truth.
Exactly.
So that has been ripped apart. So that's all being part of this matrix, part of this systems, unfortunately. And part of this healing journey is unpacking all of these different layers, recognizing, what's it called, externalizing it, right? Finding, rewriting your story. Going back to this self-love concept is, it's, for me, has been really unpacking all of that. And it's
Exactly.
multi-layered. It's
Yeah.
multi-layered. It's not like, okay, self-love is just gonna, I'm gonna dress all cute, all cutesy, all very demure, all mindful. I'm gonna be doing my nails. I'm gonna go to get a
Hmm.
massage. That's the very superficial aspect of self-love. Yeah, it is part of self-love, but it's a very minuscule part of it.
Exactly.
It counts, it matters. I level
It's
that.
it's
Yeah,
an act of self-love. It's not the
exactly.
self-love itself. It's a reward.
Exactly. It's a reward, it's instant gratification. Great, we understand it for what it is. But I think that going back to the question around what self-love is for me is also, how do I pour into myself the way, or probably even more, in the ways that I've poured into others, in the ways that I've
Hmm.
poured into the world, that I've supported others and serving my community. It's also giving that to myself. And it's being radically honest with this radical self responsibility of like, and also giving myself grace and forgiving myself in the very difficult moments, and understanding that I'm not perfect, that I'm going to mess up, but that
Yeah,
I can take ownership and responsibility, learn from these experiences and move forward and grow, because that's life, right? That's
exactly.
how we move forward. That's how I've built my self-love.
Exactly. And you talked about the system, the patriarchy, and of course it's not in their interest that we women we love ourselves, because when you love yourself, your sense of self-worth, you have this better sense of self-worth. You know better, and you start to make better decisions for yourself,
Mhm.
right? And not because you inflate your ego or something. It's just because when you feel supported by yourself, when you feel aligned, when you feel centered,
Mhm.
you trust your intuition, you trust what your judgment. So you start to think before answering, is that for me or not? And you start to say no more often, right? When you
Exactly.
love yourself, it's easier to say no. And I think it's not in their best interest.
It definitely isn't. It definitely isn't in their best interest. And these are the things that I do see, right? I do see a lot. For me, when I go on social media, or especially TikTok, there's a lot of things out there that I'm like, I integrate the social media literacy around being mindful, being aware, being discerning, that I'm not consuming this because I'm going to believe it 100%. I'm
Hmm.
consuming this because I'm coming from a self aware, analytical lens of like, what message does this give to people? And what is this trying to maybe allure to? What is it trying to convince people to? And a lot of it is around this concept. And I don't know if you understand, if you've heard about the red pill like movement or the alpha men masculine movement, but it's really about reinforcing this patriarchal belief systems of very rigid gender roles and norms. Women are, kind of like should be a certain way, men should be
Mm-hmm.
a certain way. And even though, this might work for people, might work for them to build their self-esteem, their self-confidence in men, it's also reinforcing a lot of misogynistic beliefs and
Mm-hmm.
reinforcing this divide, reinforcing this hatred, reinforcing machismo, reinforcing polarity, reinforcing hatred. And how does this all relate to self love and what we're talking about? Well, who's benefiting from this, right? Also, the over sexualizing women, right? Or women not being able to express ourselves in the ways that we
Mm-hmm.
want to, um, because now we're objectified, right? Sexualized, all over sexualized, all of these things. So, of course, this is all related to self love because it's also unpacking all of these different layers. I do think that it does require that, and recognizing, well, what is mine and what isn't. What can I discard and what do I take with me? What are some of the, also we talk about like going back to our parents, to our family dynamics. We, perhaps a lot of us didn't grow up in maybe environments that were loving, caring. A lot of people grew up with a lot of dysfunction and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also, how do people find those things and like embark in this healing journey and this self-love journey? Part of that is figuring out, what do you want to take, what do you want to leave behind, what is it that you no longer want to carry that isn't yours, right? How do you like cut those ties, cut those, break those cycles, energetically, spiritually, emotionally, in all of these different layers, and move forward. And
Exactly.
it requires being very brave and being courageous, in
Yes.
getting, taking your own path. Or what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
I think you just when you are talking, I just visualize two layers of difficulty. First, as we already talked about it, we were not taught that how to love ourselves. And secondly, this other layer, these expectations or these we shouldn't be proud of ourselves, or we shouldn't, how can I say, let me just rephrase it,
Mhm.
like we shouldn't show off or we shouldn't be too loud.
Mm.
So there is the second layer to that, which is the guilt. So once I finally start to love myself, there is the guilt that I shouldn't be behaving that. Who do I think I am to love myself? Who do
Mm.
I think I am to say I am smart? I am beautiful. I am sexy. Oh, no, sexy. No, I can't say that. You know?
It's so taboo. It's so taboo that literally it's in our faces everywhere, right? But
Exactly.
it's like the double standard, right?
Exactly. Even when you look at the mirror and you think, "Oh, I am beautiful, I am hot today." No, I cannot be seen as hot. I cannot be seen as sexy. Oh, no. So there are two layers. Once
Mhm.
we start to love ourselves, then comes the guilty, the feeling of guilt of just for loving ourselves, or just by accepting who we are and
Yeah.
being proud of that.
Oh, yes. So I think about like the misconceptions, right? The challenges, the barriers. I do think that one is the guilt and the shame that comes, right? Is like, as you mentioned, who do you who do I think I am, of wanting this for myself, right? Why? A lot of it is like other people's voices telling you, well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't, blah, 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 you shouldn't, right? So that immediately you internalize it as your own.
Exactly.
So we know that we need to externalize that and realize and literally challenge ourselves to think, what is mine and what isn't, whose voice is this, and whose voice is it that I want to really not continue to carry. So it's that shame of, yes, I think we're told that we shouldn't be too much, that we shouldn't be loud, that we shouldn't feel confident and show up, right? There's all of these different layers. And I do think that these are all conditioning. These are all society. This is all coming from either our own upbringing, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's really about dissecting all of these things as we're embarking in our healing journey. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's understanding. Well, there's always going to be that, but how can I also be giving myself grace in this process, that these thoughts, these beliefs are going to come up as I'm learning to reframe them, is also giving yourself, being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace and self-compassionate, like being
Exactly.
self-compassionate, being patient and kind to yourself in those moments when you are struggling, when maybe there's a lot of like negative self-talk, or this negative inner dialogue, or this self-criticism, this like unrealistic expectations of like, the self-demand of like expecting perfection. We know that there's also a trauma with that, right? Sometimes it comes from people, their parents expected so much from them, so now they carry this huge weight. so
Mm-hmm.
so we need to really learn and understand our story and our experiences, so we can reframe them and rewrite our story and our narrative
Yeah.
in a more empowering and loving, self kind
I
way.
think in doubt, just be your friend.
Mhm.
Just think about what advice I would give to my friend in a situation like that, because that's I think it's as simple as that. And you said something interesting. You talked about compassion, and compassion for it's a compassion. When I think about compassion, I think about pure love, about giving love without expecting something in return. And more than that, compassion comes from a place of knowing the other person or understanding the other person, walking on their shoes. And I think that applies to self-love as well. So we should understand ourselves, we should walk on our own shoes, because sometimes we don't. So I would say maybe self love starts with self knowledge, like
Mhm.
who am I? And it seems kind of obvious, but I don't think most of us know ourselves that much, that deep, do
Mhm.
that work of actually knowing our desires, our needs, understanding why we behave in certain ways, why we decide what we decide. So it starts with knowing ourselves, I believe,
Oh
and
yeah,
having that
100%.
compassion that we would have for a friend.
Yeah, that's so true. It's the self-awareness, right? The being gentle and patient with ourselves, because I think oftentimes what I see is that people get so impatient. They don't want to go through the they want to skip
Exactly.
the pain, the
Mm-hmm.
shadow. They want to skip all of the process. And I know that's
And
some cliche, and you may not want to hear it, whoever's listening, that it's really about embracing the process in the here and now.
exactly.
Why? Because a lot of people are so stuck in, I want to skip this step. I don't want to get to know me. I don't want to understand my triggers. I don't want to understand my past. I don't want to heal my past, my traumas, because it doesn't affect me. It won't affect my relationships. It's just going to maybe affect how I relate to myself and how I
Mm-hmm.
speak to myself. And yeah, that's a big deal. So, no, I'm sorry. y'all, but you can't skip the process. And I'm saying in a very loving, compassionate way, you're going to have to ride that right at
Exactly.
dawn. You're going to have to go through the process. It's not going to feel comfortable. So embracing discomfort, it's going to be very
Exactly.
important. Embracing that it's okay not to feel okay as we go through this journey. It's okay to have very low days. It's okay to have very happy days and you're like, oh, I'm okay, but then next time a trigger comes up and you're like, oh shit, I'm back to zero, I'm back 3 steps. That is a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, literally, there's no destination.
Exactly.
Let me just put it out there. The destination is here now because we only have here and now.
Yeah. I think we could use everything you said to relate with hacks. Nowadays, everything is hack for this, hack for that. And hack is just like a magical solution
Hmm.
without leaving your comfort zone.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I could say self love is looking at the mirror and repeat 20 times, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And yeah, it's good to do that. It helps, but it's more than that. It's like you said, it's a hard work. It's like a friendship. It
Yeah.
requires hard work. You have to
Yeah.
work on each relationship,
Yeah.
especially the relationship with yourself.
And you know what? I think you bring up a point around friendships, right? Speak to you as if you were to speak to your friend. And the reality is that not a lot of people have those healthy relationships in their lives.
Mm,
So what do
good
people
point.
do? What do people do if they don't have a healthy foundation of what a healthy, loving, caring friendship is? So then how do they start with talking to themselves as if they were talking to their friends if they don't have that?
Good point.
So I think it starts with, I do think that inner child healing is so powerful. And the times that I've done it with clients, is it just bring it literally does a shift. It shifts completely the way that maybe they think about themselves, the way they speak and show up for themselves. So I think that thinking as yourself, as your little child, little you, how you would or wanted to be treated or talked to or given love and care and reassurance and validation, give yourself that, right? Reminding yourself that you have your adult self, which is you now, and you have your inner self, your inner child self, right? And there's these different parts that you can connect to because what they're all part of you, they're all within you, they're all part of your story, your history,
Mm-hmm.
your narrative. So how can we, I think one of the things is starting to, if you don't have a foundation of, I want to speak to as I want to speak to myself as I speak to my friends, then speak to yourself as how you wanted to be spoken as a child, how you wanted to be treated. And I know a lot of people struggle with connecting to their inner child, but I do think is a very, very powerful approach to do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear. I think it got a little.
Okay. So sorry, when I hear a noise in the background. So when I hear the noise, I'm gonna pause.
Okay.
Okay.
I think there are jets.
Okay. Okay.
We
No
haven't
worries.
we have this event here in Canada every end of the summer when they have
Okay.
jets,
Yeah.
and yeah.
No worries. So I think that that would be a very maybe exercise that people can try, our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
That it might surprise you. It might surprise you. I also, you have mentioned a lot around limiting beliefs as well. You mentioned, well, I maybe like the fear of maybe what other people are going to say or think because maybe people are told like you're too much. Another big one, another big limiting belief that comes up is that you're selfish, right? I'm selfish for prioritizing myself. And this is something
Mm-hmm.
that I have personally had to work through. I really don't know where I've learned it. Probably with my family, my mom. Maybe she's always been very selfless. She's always been a giver. She's always puts everyone before her. And I'm like, to me, that I get it. I understand it's a different generation, but I realize
Mm-hmm.
that is so, it's doing a disservice for, it would be doing a disservice for me. I would be like self-sacrificing all of these different aspects of myself. I don't want to do that. So for me, it's like this, oh, I'm too selfish for wanting to do XYZ, for prioritizing myself, for doing all these amazing things, fulfilling all of these dreams. And it's like, wait a minute. Whose voice is this? This is not mine to carry. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, this is not true and this is not real. That's not true. So it's really about reminding myself, like, reality check, Cynthia, like, that's not true and that's not real. And, you know, you're worthy of deserving of everything that you worked hard for. And this is where you're at, and I acknowledge, honor your journey, your process where you're at, hype yourself up, celebrate the big wins, the small wins, because another thing is like, who am I to celebrate all of these things? Who am I
Exactly.
to give myself so much of that attention and love? And these are all the things that I do see a lot in people too. So it's about unpacking that, giving yourself grace, shifting, reframing that talk. And
Yeah.
that's the journey, that's the process, that's where you, that's, I think, the end goal, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
being here now with yourself. And I think another thing is also the self accountability, the radical responsibility to yourself, right? And
Yeah.
that could be in like difficult situations, right? That maybe you're encountering relationships, maybe maybe someone's in the, whoever's listening, in a very toxic, dysfunctional relationship, or they don't know whether they want to go or they want to stay, but they're questioning, or they're just navigating very difficult situation in their life and they don't know what to do. And somehow they're like talking to themselves negatively, they're being critical, they're putting themselves down because of something that they did 10 years ago and they cannot get over, right? So in those moments, I do think that it's important to, I think self-forgiveness is a big, powerful approach and tool to remind ourselves, like, hey, in the past, if we think about the past, that's where we were in that point in time. You didn't have the tools that you know now. You're not where you are now.
Exactly. Compassion.
You don't have the life lessons that you have now, or the knowledge, the
Mm-hmm.
awareness, the experience. So why are you even putting yourself down? Embrace that and be like, okay, yeah, I messed up. I fucked up. Oof, like I cannot even think about it because of the shame. So, or the
Mm-hmm.
guilt. Acknowledge the shame and the guilt, acknowledge that it's there. It's not your identity. These are all complex emotions that come when we're trying to repress or suppress these things. But how do we process that and release that too? And shifting it to a more self-compassionate inner dialogue and say, hey, all right, I see you, I get it, I feel it, I acknowledge it, I process it, and then I move on. I learned from that
Exactly.
experience, right?
Not only accepting the mistakes, but be thankful, be grateful for them, because they bring us lessons. Lessons are
Yeah,
important. If we are, they shape it.
exactly.
And it's interesting when you say like, oh, we talk a lot of bad things to ourselves, and this and that and all the guilt. And I think as Latinas, there is another layer. We are talking about layers. Here comes another one.
Yeah.
Being Latina in a space that is not primarily um, lat-
Mhm.
how can I say, it's not in my case. I can talk from my experience. Not being on my home, in my home country,
Hmm.
is adds another layer.
Yeah.
Because when I came, I came 8 years ago, and I still pass through migration stages, I would say. And in the beginning, it was so hard for me to. I would be always thinking, "Oh my God, is my English good enough?" And then you start thinking, "Am I good enough?" Because you don't have the same background as other people.
Hmm.
Your education is different. Even your values are different, and you start to question, "Am I good enough?" And at some point, I started even to resent my home country, like, why I was born in Brazil. If I was born here, I would have more opportunities. I would be further in my career or something. Until I
Hmm.
started realizing that all the hardship, all the challenges, they made me strong, they made me resilient. And then I started to feel proud of myself, and then I started to feel guilty because, oh my God, I'm not home,
Hmm.
so I should be quiet. There's that layer as well,
Oh
like,
yeah.
we should be grateful for being here,
Yeah.
just that. Like, who am I to be proud of myself
Yeah.
here, you know?
You bring up a big point, which is everyone is going to have a very unique experience, as I've mentioned. And I always mention that it's not one size fits all. Everyone has a unique experience, especially even going through grief, going through leaving your home country, your family, right? Like adjusting, assimilating, learning a language, right? So learning a culture, right? Finding a sense of belonging, finding a sense of community, going through your grief process, reinventing yourself, restructuring, right, your identity and finding yourself. Like all of these things are part of your story and your journey. And like I said, everyone's journey is going to be very different. But this is, yeah, you're right. I think gratitude also is a big, powerful tool and a big approach of of self compassion, right? Because if we're just focusing on this negative bias, on this negative things, all of these things that happen to us, when yeah, things happen all of the times, things happen to us all of the time, but what role are we going to play in that? Are we going to stay in this victim mindset, this victimhood, or are we going to take the reign of I don't even know how to say that, like the bulls, something with the bulls and the horns, like are you going to take that and be like, okay, this is where I'm at. Yeah, I'm gonna cry it out. I'm gonna feel petty. I'm gonna feel sad. I'm gonna feel depressed. I'm gonna feel anxious. I'm gonna grieve. How do I move forward with this? What do I learn from this experience? What is this trying to tell me? How do I use this to learn about myself, to embrace who I am, to take courageous action of where I want to go and where I want to be? And it is going to require, getting out of our comfort zone. It is going to require a lot of gratitude, a lot of staying in the present moment, a lot of
Hmm.
appreciation, a lot of like hyping ourselves up, reaching out to community. I think finding a sense of community and support that can support us, that can mentor us, that can guide us, that can hold space for us, that can contain us, that is going to be really, really important through that process. But yeah, it's like also giving ourselves that grace while we hold ourselves accountable, while we, rather than letting drowning ourselves in our sorrow, which I think it's really dependent on people's tools and ability and experiences and capacity, but it's all within us. We are
Hmm.
all resilient in our own ways. We've all gone through stuff, we've all gone through traumatic experiences, we've all gone through very difficult times, but we have it in us to
Yeah.
figure it out. So it does require, as I mentioned, that radical self responsibility of like, yeah, this is messed up, but I got this. And it will be okay. It will turn out exactly as it needs to be, even if I don't see it now, even if it's a shitty process or like
Hmm.
experience it all. It's all coming down in the ways that it needs to be, because I need to learn one way or another, and I'm going to learn from this experience, and I'm going to take it with me as oh wow, like I've been through this. I've been through very difficult and tough times, and I can get through very difficult and tough times if they come again,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I would say this is all the self love journey. It's the journey, it's the here and the now. It's not about the destination. Is there anything else, Luciana, that you want to share? Words of encouragement, maybe for anyone who's going through this journey or is very scared of going through this journey or still trying to figure out, who they
Hmm.
are, their relationship to themselves. Is there any words of encouragement that you'd want to share?
I think the first thing I would say to anyone is, if you need to hear this right now, I'm saying to you, be proud of who you are, because you are the result of all the experience you have, all the mistakes you made, and all the good things you did in life. So be proud of that, because that's life. And I think we should be more more proud because of what I said. Sometimes we are so ashamed of a few decisions we made or the mistakes, but they made who we are. And I always like to say that only the average fit in. So if you don't feel like you fit in a certain group, it's just because you are special in your own way, that you set you apart. Maybe you have all the resilience that you learned from your ancestors. Maybe you have different tastes because of your family background. Maybe you are just Latina.
And that's your superpower.
And that's your superpower. Be proud. Be proud
Yeah.
because you are above average.
Yeah. No, yes, I agree. I agree. And I do have some encouragement words to say. I do think that if you're listening, if you're going through a rough time, if you're embarking in this journey, like focus on the here and the now. Like embrace your story and learn about yourself.
Hmm.
Embrace that journey, that process. Everything is falling in its place in the way that it need to. Just trust it, trust yourself, giving yourself grace, giving yourself patience, self-forgiveness, radical self-responsibility, and you got this, and you got this.
And if you need steps or a recipe, I have a two-step process, I would
Hmm.
say, if you want to work on your self-love. Because working with clients with time, I realized that most of the times it's a matter of self-worth or self-love. I
Mm-hmm.
can give you all the information, and to transform your life the way you want your life to be transformed, you have to make the best decisions. And you only make the best decisions when you are very connected to yourself, when you have that sense of self-worth. So I have this two-step process that I think it's
Hmm.
very simple. The first one, as I said, it's about compassion.
Hmm.
And compassion is about knowing the other, therefore knowing yourself. Go to this journey to actually know yourself, know,
Hmm.
as I said, your desires, your needs, the reasons behind your decisions. So journaling is a good practice. Meditation, if made with the intention of knowing yourself. And most importantly, ask yourself the hard questions.
Hmm.
That's very important. And the
Yes.
second step, I would say, is take care of your body as well, because everything is related. To be mentally healthy, you need to be physically healthy and otherwise. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying that only in a metaphysical way, but in a scientific way as well, because
Hmm.
when we move our bodies, we help our bodies to regulate our hormones that are going to make us feel more fulfilled, that will make us feel more motivated. The same with food. A certain types of food can make us feel better, others not so good. So
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to what you eat, how you sleep, drink a lot of water. I mean, take care of your body,
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to that's going to help you to love yourself
Yeah.
more as well, and know yourself. That's the key. Actually, that's the key for everything in life, right?
Yeah,
We should
definitely.
know ourselves, our true selves.
100%. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for being here, Luciana,
Thank you
having this
for
wonderful,
having me.
of course, I love having these conversations, and learning about, other people's experiences and how other people kind of view and their perspectives and help others. So thank you. Where can people work with you, find you?
Okay, so I am a health and wellness coach. I have a private online wellness club for women. I have a boot camp that people spend a 4 week, not spend a 4 week, it's online. And during a 4 week, we work on habits. The baseline of my work is changing habits, loving yourself. So after this boot camp, you are part of my club, of my online club, where women support each other on their wellness journey. We have yoga sessions, we have
Oh,
workout workshops, a
awesome.
lot of good stuff there. And if you want to know more about me, you can go to my website, lucianawellness.com, or you can talk to me on Instagram. I'm at Luciana Wellness there. As well on YouTube, you can find me, Luciana Wellness, there. And yeah,
Awesome.
I could talk about it all day long because I love wellness.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luciana, for being here. And thank you for everyone that tuned in. This means a lot to me. It would really mean a lot to me if you leave a review either on YouTube or on Spotify. And also share it on your socials, tag me. And yeah, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, all of those deets. And we'll be seeing you on the next episode. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.